for this morning was our accident performance for last year and what we can do in the way of use of planned safety observations to hopefully have a better performance this year. In reviewing last year, I see we've got 142 accidents in 1981. That sounds like a heck of a lot of accidents, and the thing that's bothersome is that in looking at each of those, only 25 or 17% of them, of the people that were injured on those jobs actually had a planned safety observation on that particular job. As you guys know, we've got some quotas set on how we should handle planned safety observations. We're talking about one planned safety observation per month for anybody in a hazardous job, for anybody with less than 6 months service. Everyone else, we're supposed to have a planned safety observation once a quarter. The records, however, don't indicate that we're doing an effective job, at least our accident performance. And the other part of the program is that general foremen are supposed to take the records of those whose records indicate they've had a planned safety observation, and we're supposed to follow up with 2 interviews per month for general foreman to see if in fact it's been a quality observation, to see if the fellow remembers being observed, to see if in fact the message has got across, to see if the turn foreman has in fact told the employee that he was being observed. You are the ones that are most familiar with the job, most familiar with what potential hazards are out there, and all I can do is set quotas, make an occasional planned safety observation myself, but I rely on you fellows to use really the only tool that we have to detect and obviously correct unsafe acts. I think what we're interested in more than numbers is the quality of a safety observation. You don't want to ignore people, and at the same time you don't want to be picking on certain people. You don't want people to think that since they had a couple accidents, they're the only ones that are ever being observed. You want to try to get a good cross-section of your department, but the main thing in the back of your mind is that you want a good quality safety observation. You're not really out there trying to find somebody doing something wrong. You know, you're trying to find a reason for our high accident performance. And we're hopeful that through good quality planned safety observations we can find some of the reasons for our accidents, determine where some of the guys might be using shortcuts and correcting them on the spot where you've got an unsafe condition, and coming back and re-observing them where you find it necessary.
Bob, one thing that I want to say in our department that's giving us a problem right now is the plant pool employees that are being transferred in, and we're having some difficulty in getting proper safety through to them. And what we've done, we've set up a checklist in the particular job that they're working. There may be 6 or 7 various jobs that they'll do throughout a week, not on the first day on the job, but throughout the week. So we've set up a checklist that's helped our turn foremen, and when they perform the various jobs, then they come back and check it off through the turn. So consequently, they're not observing the man a one-time observation on the first day. It may take a full week till they get the checklist completed, and then they turn it in.
That's maybe something we might want to pick up in the other departments. Don, one of the problems that we've all run into, I'm sure, is the reluctance, especially of a younger foreman, an inexperienced foreman, going up to an employee with 30, 35 years experience and announcing the fact that I'm going to give you a plant safety observation. The turn foreman feels a little reluctant to approach a guy with all that service, and what would you suggest? How's the best way to handle that?
Well, I feel that initially the man has to analyze each person that he's going to observe. Before he starts, he should have some knowledge of that individual, what kind of person he is, which will help him in making his observation, but he should rely mostly on the man himself. Utilize him as the tool. Approach him as saying to him, you know, I'm new on the job. Use him to help you. That you don't understand all the aspects of this particular job, and by showing the confidence in the man and his ability to do a job, he will help you learn more about the job, and you will better understand it. But at the same time, when you gain his confidence, you can then point out things to him. You want to gain his confidence, and you also want to help him. Even though he's been doing it 35 years, he could have been doing it 35 years wrong.
You know, there's another point about that I think helps. See, I believe the employees have the confidence in the JSA, the written JSA, and if you mention to them ahead of time, you sit down, you studied the JSA, then that sort of puts them on your side, because they, at least the employees in my department, feel like the JSA is the Bible. And if they know that you've read it ahead of time, then they're supposed to be working according to the JSA. Some of that animosity.
Okay, well, that's an important part of any plant safety observation. The most important thing before you even get started is to sit down and study the job and make sure you've got firm in your mind every step that the employee should be going through. And once you have it firm in your mind, then you can go out and I like the tactful approach you mentioned, Don.
Well, I found that even sometimes the over supervisors may not necessarily be making the best quality plant safety observations. When I do follow-up interviews, a lot of times I find that some of the employees that I interviewed, even though they were observed by experienced foremen, they don't even know that they were observed. And I feel that it's important that when we make these follow-up interviews, that we then bring the foreman in and discuss the quality of their observations.
We just want to make sure everyone is doing it the right way. And if you're armed that way, I think you'll, I think examples and knowing what happened on this particular job makes it a little bit more meaningful. At least you get his attention of the man too.
You know, this is probably the one phase of the whole safety program that demands the most tact from the supervisor. And you can just get an employee, get the hair raised up on the back of his neck and get him very defensive if you come upon him with a know-it-all attitude and I'm going to check the way you did your job or do your job. But it takes a lot of tact and friendly persuasion really to get the fellow to cooperate with you, and it's worth it because it is, as I mentioned earlier, the only tool we have for picking up and correcting unsafe acts. So it's a heck of a good tool, and I guess the most important thing we want to remember is, although we've set some quotas, they're guidelines and guidelines only. A good quality contact is really what we're after.
But one of the things that we're not really putting into words is it's extremely important that we get some two-way communication going between the individual that's being observed and the observer. Because without that communication, we're going to lose the major benefit of the contact. So the communication between the two individuals is an integral part of the contact. One of the most important things, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. That he can come up with things that maybe, even though it says that this is the way it's supposed to be done, it's not done that way, and there is a better way to do it. And in most cases, by getting the man's confidence, he can tell you more so than we can, because he's doing the job every day.
I think one of the things that we keep missing is the big point. The general supervisor has to check on the foreman. He has to follow through, and he has to monitor the quality of the contacts. Because if the quality isn't there, they're not worth the time. You know? And I think that's an area that I find I have to push myself to complete that quota. But
we kind of take the attitude that everybody knows how to make one, you know? And I think as general supervisors, that we have to really train the people.
You gotta get
You
involved.
gotta go out there
You gotta get involved, that's
and
it.
see what they're doing, and that's the whole secret, you know.
Well, I think the whole point, we're talking about basically the foreman doing this job, but we have to have a close follow-up to make sure that he's doing his job right. We have, some way, we have to monitor what's going on, because we can have people making oodles of, contacts and observations, but maybe they aren't followed. You know, the only way you're gonna find that out if each one of us, and especially the general foreman, make some of their own or go along with these people.
You're talking sincerity. You've got to show the guy that you're, like we said earlier, not just out there going for the number game, but you're sincerely interested in that man's safety.